How did Aiden Markram score the quickest 100 in World Cup history? He's a baffling player, right? He has height and muscles and technique and poise, and yet he averages like mid to high 30s across international cricket with the skills to obviously do so much more than that. Today, he was everything anyone could ever ask of.
This video is brought to you by Wicket Cricket Manager.
Every day this World Cup, we will be going live at the end of the day's play with our show, The Scoreboard, over on our Jarrod Kimber podcast channel. I look at what happened on the field and also answer questions from the comments. That mark lasted through the 1979 edition until 1983 when Kapil Dev played against Zimbabwe. India was 17-5, and he made his 100 from 72 deliveries, scoring 2/3 of India's total. That innings was not filmed, and all we have is images of Kapil Dev smacking the ball all around. So far, the record was held by two absolute legends of the game. The third guy was a perennial 12th man for Victoria and a spinner for South Australia who also ended up playing for Canada. In the World Cup, he opened against the West Indies in 2003 and he went berserk. The Australian off-spinner became Canada's greatest hitter ever and he set the record in a shocking 67 balls. Sadly, Matt Hayden came along and went past it by a single ball in the following tournament against South Africa. But no one cares about that because Kevin O'Brien won it back for the Associates when he played perhaps the most incredible hitting innings since Kapil in 1983, and he did it with even worse hair. A 50-ball 100 that embarrassed England and also lasted for a long time even after the T20 explosion. And that is where the record stayed until this innings. Aiden Markram beat it by a single ball. How? I mean, Sri Lanka do have a really good bowling attack. Well, they would if their best three bowlers were actually available to play for them. And they have some depth. So it wasn't scrubs out there, but no one is saying that this is a top attack. There was a couple of players who were in development, another player who just hadn't played that much, and an all-rounder they just had to overuse. And we do have to factor in that this was a good pitch for batting. In fact, this was a great pitch for batting, right? South Africa had two other hundreds in the same innings, and that has never happened before in a World Cup. This was the highest scoring total in a World Cup as well. And even if you look at Sri Lanka's batting, which isn't even that strong, they passed 300 while losing wickets. This was certainly a good place to bat. But no one else made 100 off 49 balls. And it certainly wasn't with terrible bowling. In fact, I would say that the worst balls he received, he actually barely scored from them. It's incredible to think that someone could make 100 from 49 deliveries and actually face about 3 full tosses that you don't really score from at all. And I wonder if this is partly because he's such a technically correct batter. Because if this was a slogger, we'd be sending someone out to actually find the ball right now. So the issue for Aiden Markram over a long period of time is that he is a bad strike rotator. And I don't think I've ever seen a batter of his quality score the runs that he has and not be able to rotate strike that well. A year or so back, I looked into it, and even though I knew he struggled, the amount was crazy. You can see that he gets dismissed about the same amount on attacking shots. That's absolutely fine. Defending is clearly not a big issue for him either. But when it gets to rotating the strike, he actually gets dismissed more than when attacking. I mean, how is that possible? That is the easiest thing for a top order player to do, especially one of his quality, and he cannot. And in this innings, he actually wasn't that good at rotating the strike. It's just that he kept mishitting those balls. He's just much better when he's actually trying to hit the ball quite hard. And there's something about him half hitting the ball that doesn't work as well for him. So I suppose that today, that was another thing that helped. He didn't really need to rotate the strike all that much because, he just hit all those boundaries. All things considered, it's a better plan. Have you ever wondered how I watch so much cricket? I use VPNs to log into accounts from all around the world. But because before, even simple things like when something exciting would happen in a match, I would rush over to social media, and when I got there, the clips would say something along the lines of, "This video is not available in your area." In fact, most of the coolest cricket stuff in the world at the moment is geo-blocked because some random board didn't sign a deal where you happen to live. If you're a hardcore cricket nerd, the only way is to have a VPN, and we suggest Surfshark. They will give you the speed of your favorite quick bowler. They're as inventive as a T20 batter after a bunch of dot balls, and they're as secure as a specialist wicketkeeper with the softest hands in the world. And guess what? The kind folks at Surfshark are going to give you a deal. Enter the promo code Kimber for an extra 3 months free at surfshark.deals/Kimber. There are probably other things that Surfshark can help you with, like data and identity theft and traceability and intrusive advertising. But for us, it is our best weapon against the evil cricket geoblock. Go to Surfshark and type my name in Kimber and get 3 months free today. Another interesting thing about this innings is that Markram did it against all bowlers, because in T20 one issue he can have is that he's incredible against right-arm seam and not so much against kind of everything else. During the IPL, we had him as the second best average against right-arm seam of any major player in T20 cricket. He really likes it a lot. And in T20, he just doesn't do as much against all the other kinds of bowling. He's about as close to a specialist right-arm basher as anyone in the game is. Yet today, he went for everything. He scored very well against the spinner, although his strike rate was lower in that part, but that's also because of when he faced the spin compared to when he faced the pace. But he really took down the left arm quick. When he was facing the spin, however, it seemed he was intent on giving himself lots of room to cut, repeatedly using that as his main option, which gave him boundaries, but also was a fairly safe way of scoring quite quickly. And the interesting thing about this shot is it's one of the few times he really actually moves. Mostly, he just stands still when batting. There are times when he moves less, hitting a six, than another player would dead batting a defensive shot. And this always allows him to have such a strong base, and his head is always still. In fact, all things considered, he's a very technically correct player. And I think that is really important when you look at the shots here, because what you don't see is him slogging. And it's not that he can't, we've seen him heave across the line occasionally, but mostly he stays in correct shape and plays proper shots. He is not a hitter, but he has incredible power. He's certainly a big guy, which is also part of the reason. But what is interesting is when you watch, he almost never fully swings all the way through the ball. He plays at best, three-quarter drives, check drives, and yet the ball just flies almost every time. The ability to hit the ball that hard without having to swing your ass off allows him to play controlled shots that easily go for six. All he needs to do is make slight changes. Like if you slightly overpitch, he just hits it a little bit later and digs it out. He's completely in control of everything, and everything he does is so repeatable. And so the question is, why doesn't he do this more often? And I don't mean scoring 100 off 59 balls, but just making more hundreds in general. He didn't make one in his first 49 one-day internationals, and now he has 3 in 7 games. And at least part of that seems like he's overcome the strike rotation problem, usually just by trying to hit the ball harder early on in his innings, which for most players would not work. But he's also maturing. He just turned 29, which means last year he entered his peak batting age. He's also used to batting inside India, although his recent form is everywhere, not just on flat wickets in Delhi against half a Sri Lankan attack. But the important thing is that this is the Aiden Markram that people talked about when he was a teenager. A man built like a brick shithouse, who through his height can drive anything, who is quick enough to play the short ball, who has the strength of an all-rounder, but the technique of a proper top-order player. It should have always been like this. This innings was short, but it was a long time coming.